Welcome to Jung at Harp. This is episode number 209. Why does easy feel wrong? I am Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, performer, educator, mentor, creative. We both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. JUNG@HARP.com, and you can find us on the podcast platforms as well as YouTube. So do check us out. So we're going to talk about this morning because we are aware that often when we're in the flow and something comes easily to us or other creatives that we know, that we then judge it as not being valid. If it's easy and it flows, somehow it must be wrong. It must not be good enough. It must not be right. And DHC is getting ready to offer a challenge for harpists, a 5-day challenge, Baroque Flamingo this time, right? I remember I got my email on that. And it's all about making it easy, meaning making it accessible. So we wanted to talk this morning and invite you to join in. If you're watching live on the platform, you can add comments to the chat about what's going on here. Why is it we cannot relax into our own flow and celebrate when something comes easily, naturally, where it's effortless?
Yeah, it's interesting. And this is not just, I notice it a lot in the members of the Academy that there's kind of this, on the one hand, there's something exciting about like, oh, this was so easy. But then when they go to like create something out of it that's theirs, sometimes they'll feel like, well, but this is just cheating. This is real. And that moment, I remember in particular, one of the Academy members who started the harp with me, and this is unusual because normally I work with people who have either, burned out on the harp or they're sort of intermediate players, but they don't know how to go on and they don't know how to go into improv. But she started with me, and she snuck in under the radar. And I remember I teach these little snippets. I teach little bits of music that are so tiny that sometimes, anybody could play them. Like that might be a snippet. It becomes an invitation. That little thing becomes an invitation for and yet it starts with something so simple that and these are snippets. They're little improv prompts or meditation prompts, or it's the kind of thing that you might if you sat down to play with another player and you weren't sure, you sat down to improvise with another player and you weren't sure what level each person was at, you might offer something as simple as that. And it has everything that's needed to make music. It has a periodicity, it has a sense of rhythm, it has, and I can even open it up more. Then it's got an open section that invites the other person or your hand or whatever. Anyway, so I teach these at the beginning of every chat that we have. So 3 times a week, I give a snippet. And so there's there's hundreds of these snippets now collected. And one member of the Academy came in, she said, I just put a bunch of snippets together. Is this music? And she had a little video played it, and it was beautiful. It was fluid. It was musical. She was being musical, and and the experience was of hearing music. And yet, what she felt like was, but I just took these things that I already know, and I just put them together in a way that felt good. And so she was questioning, is this music? Because we're so used to something having to be a certain way, or So the challenge that I'm just about to teach is based on a piece of music that's called Baroque flamenco. That just happens to be the piece, but the piece comes from a little minuet that I learned years ago. And inside this piece, there is a formula. It is a framework, a very simple framework that alternates between a simple melody and a simple compositional structure, which is called a descending bass line, which goes like this. It's literally, if you were to draw a line, it's just like it's there, and then it's here, and then it's here, and it's here. It's like going down steps, going down the steps, and I'm going down the steps. But you can do so much with it, and you can learn so much about music, because you can do going down the steps, or you can do going down the steps. And depending on how you do that, you can improvise much more into it. So if I'm going, so you can see that I'm simply using that pattern, but I can take it twice as long. And I'm noodling up here. That's just a different set of tools, which I also teach, but it's just different sets of tools, and you don't really have to do them all at the same time. And within moments, anyone, like someone, if I had someone to my house and I said, let's play the harp together, and they'd be like, I don't know how to play the harp. And I'd be like, well, that's okay. I just want you to play this note, and then this note, and then this note, and then this note. You just keep doing that over and over and over again, and I'm going to play around you. And we would be able to play together. They would be playing music with me. If I were to tell them to, and if I was to say, okay, now you can do that. Let's say we did that for 10 minutes, and they're like, hey, I can do that. I may not be perfect, but I can do that. And then I can say, okay, now I want you to do that, but in between, I want you to play notes up here. So you'd go. I'm literally like picking any note, but it has rhythm, and we all have rhythm, and I've just created music. Now, I'm not saying that's the most beautiful music in the world, but I'm saying that within a moment, you can create something that is music. And then as you keep, then you bring in the experience of making it a practice. And even if you make it a practice for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you will have more facility with it. And suddenly this thing, or slowly or without noticing it, you will be playing music. Now, am I out to lunch? I mean,
I don't think you're out to lunch. I'll tell you where my mind went as I was listening to you. Well, I had several reactions. One is I was aware of my own reaction the first time you used the word simple. I immediately felt this little hit in me, like it was a judgmental thing, like simple. It was very interesting. I was observing that on automatic response in myself to the idea of simple. It was very interesting, because I don't believe that, but that collective conditioning that's in my psyche, your psyche, all of our psyches. So I want to say to our viewer or your student who has suggested this kind of topic, I think part of the reason that we all judge easy and make it wrong is because we've been conditioned that somehow simple, easy, flow is not okay. There's something bad about it. There's something, it's just a non-rational, erroneous idea that I think is filtered down from the Puritans. But anyway, that's another story. But it's a part of the legacy of the Western world for sure. But you used the word tools, and what I was thinking is it's building blocks, that what you're offering people, you're teaching people the building blocks to drop into the flow of music. The
Yes.
building blocks to express an experience through the language of music. And so the snippet is a building block. And I found my own self, as you were playing a little more elaborately, kind of glazing over. And again, having this sense of, oh, that's too complicated. And then I thought, no, it isn't, because you break it down to the basic essential building blocks. Then my mind went to alchemy and the embodiment process of distillation and distilling things down to their essence as being part of the transformative process. But I'm going to be quiet. Well,
No,
we can go there, but
No,
that was what I was thinking.
actually, I would love to you to go exactly what you just said. I was
Okay.
curious. So you said in the alchemical, and alchemy, as I understand it, was the predecessor to science, or I don't know. Anyway, but you talked about breaking things down to their most distilled form, and see, the idea of a distilled form is so powerful. And okay, so now I'm going to talk. As you were talking, I realized that this thing, when I saw it's a story. I got my first job. I had only 4 tunes. I was playing in a restaurant. I was a sub. I don't know what made me think I was going to play for 3 hours with 4 tunes, but as I played them, probably had played through them for the 3rd time. A waiter came over and he was like, "If you play those tunes again, I'm going to pour this water in your lap." And and he was serious. I mean, Woody, I don't know, but I got that this wasn't okay, and I was forced. I had to figure out how to improvise in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I've been playing like maybe 2 years, and I never really improvised on the harp. But I'd been a composer since I was a kid, so I had a lot of tools. But I instantly recognized, or I was like forced to recognize, in this one tune I was playing, I recognized a tool, and that tool was a descending bass line. And I recognized it because I discovered it like I'd recognized it from cartoons and all kinds of stuff. I recognized it, and I thought, okay, this is something. It's a thing that maybe I could play with. And so I took this tune that was built of a little melody that was pretty, and this tool, and I kept going back and forth, and I used the tool, and I couldn't play well. So I might have been playing like that very slowly, but I was doing that kind of thing, and when I would get lost, I would come back and I'd play that melody again. I had a sophisticated mind, like we all do. We're adults. We've been listening to music for a long time, but I had the facility of a child. But with this particular formula in this particular tune was so strong that it served me there in that moment, and I kept the job. I was able to play this tune. It started to become a game, and I was like, how long can I improvise on this? And when someone looks at me like, what is she doing? I'd go back to the melody. I'd play that game. So, but then the tune grew and grew and grew and grew, and I began thinking, what else could I do? Could I add rhythm? Eventually, that one little simple tune became Baroque flamenco, this big tour de force. But what I'm teaching is the fundamental framework, because it's so powerful. And every time I go back to it, it's a new opportunity to discover something new about it. Distilled. It is the distilled form of this piece. Okay, so now talk about distillation and alchemy, and what's the power of distillation?
Yeah, so let me just, for those of you who are our viewers who aren't familiar with alchemy was a medieval science that on the outer surface attempted to turn base metals into gold. And Jung, as well as other psychologists and philosophers, recognized that it really was an attempt also to work out kind of the evolution and transformation of the instinctive self to be more of an expression of the whole man. The spiritual man would be typical, or person, I'm using man generically. So alchemy there are a series of operations or processes that were a part of this experiment to turn base metals into gold. And Jung says that they all represent the kinds of processes that we go through in our own journey to individuate or embody the self we are, embody the fullness of the innate being we were created to be. And this is what part of what we work with in spirals 2 and 3 of my online embodiment circles. So if you're interested, everybody starts with embodiment practices first to make sure you've got that container of self. Then you move to the processes. It's also the subject matter of my forthcoming book once I have a publisher. But distillation is the process whereby something is distilled down to its purest essence. And if you think about distilled spirits, distilled essential oils, what happens is that the original substance is heated. It evaporates so that the denser and the lighter portion separate out. And then the portion you want, the more concentrated, is collected and then cooled, and it goes into a different little flask. That's what makes alcohol, the more distilled, then the greater the percentage of alcohol. Or, again, the distillation process for essential oils. That's part of how the concentrate, the essence is what's collected. The essence.
Can I go back and ask you, you said the term, you said the fullness of the innate. And yes. I loved that because it sounded almost like a paradox, because you'd think the innate is the smallest version. So, but you use the word fullness.
Yeah. Yeah. So, different systems of thought and different philosophies, et cetera, have different views on this. And my view, which I think is consistent with what Jung writes about, is that there is an essence that we are born with, an essence of who I am, of who you are, that our psyche wants us to live into and embody, meaning to actualize, to realize, to actually experience it physiologically in our body, and thus then act and move in the outer environment in a way that reflects that. So that the process of individuation is about living into and embodying that wholeness. There are things that are common to all human beings, but there are things that are unique to each of us. We are each a unique confluence of all of the forces that come into creating this living being that we are.
I think that what you just said is why I love teaching distilled processes, like what I'm going to be teaching in this challenge. And by the way, anyone can always go to hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument.com /challenge. And you'll get to the current whatever challenge I'm doing. So you can find that. But if I can teach, and this is very selfish, but if I can teach a distilled process, I can watch the humanness of each person bloom in and will often bloom in the face of limitation. Also bloom, especially, like it's almost like limitation, like creativity thrives on limitation. So if they come to this thing and they're like, I can barely do this, the creative move might be get someone else to do it. So 2 people are playing the harp. The other creative move might be to like, I can't do this, I'm just going to sing that part. Like, it doesn't matter. Like if I'm thinking this is too technically difficult for me, who's to say that this la 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 la. Who's to say that isn't as good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who's to say using a looper pedal to do that thing, so that you're using a looper pedal with it, that's not as good? Who is to say that I can't play, I don't have a harp, but I do have some bells, so the bells aren't just as good? Who is to say that having two people sing it isn't just as good? The beauty of the distillation is that hopefully people will get, this is a concept. It is a concept. This is a concept of a descending bass line. That means it goes down, and this happens to go down, but it could go down further, or it could go from a different place. It could go down from there, or if it could go down, could it go up? I mean, once it's conceptual, it becomes open to transformation. But that's also the point where many people will feel like, but that's cheating. If I started singing this because I couldn't play it, that's cheating. And I'm saying that's creative response.
Yeah, I suppose if it's cheating, it means that it's violating some standard,
Right.
some expectation, some law that someone ascribes to of what is right. Yeah. Again,
Well,
I
that's a
mean,
great idea for me to ask them, tell me, what is the law that you think that you're breaking here?
yeah,
That's
what's the law that you're breaking? What's the rule that you're breaking?
Yeah.
Because often we have these responses to internalized rules that we don't really believe when we stop and think about it. But again, we've absorbed it from the collective, just like my response when you were talking early on to the word simple. It's just amazing how our collective, we're all a part of the collective psyche. So we not only have to deal with our own personal historical experiences, we have to transmute these erroneous ideas we've absorbed from the collective. It's just part of what we have to do. I want to go to the law for a minute and the distillation. And you look like you had a thought there, so I want you to hold that to come back to that. But I was thinking about how important it is to distill what matters to us. And I talk about this in my work with people one-on-one and in my embodiment circle as setting sacred intention. It's like, what is, if I'm going to sit at the harp and play, or if I'm going to be here with you and sharing with whoever joins in with us or watches afterwards, then if I have a sense of my sacred intention, that keeps me connected to the essence, or I could also say, what has heart and meaning for me in this? So if I go to play with the snippets, with the building blocks you offer, if I sit down and I pause to say, what is my sacred intention for what I'm about to do? Maybe my sacred intention is to release the stress of the day. Maybe my sacred intention is to hear the beauty of what each piece offers. Maybe my sacred intention is to let myself go into an altered state of consciousness. I mean, whatever. Again, it's like, what is it that has heart and meaning in that moment that is connected to the greater self that I am? That is connected to the whole of me, not just the compartmentalized, I'm going to sit down and try to get this right. That's so much more limited than if I pause and have a sacred intention, a distilled heart and essence, meaning, purpose for the moment.
And what if you don't? I mean, let's say you don't have a purpose, but you have a framework. Let's say you have this framework, and can you discover a purpose from practicing it without, like, I would say that there's a value in, even if I don't know my sacred purpose, that I could find my sacred purpose by taking the action without judgment and for long enough. And without saying, I'm going to find my sacred thing, but just doing it with trust and faith in the process.
But you're coming with trust and faith in something. And so there is some sense of essence behind that.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, well, if I don't have trust and faith, like, could I have a trust and faith card? Like, okay, don't have it. Okay, stop at the door. You got your trust. You got your trust. You got your faith. Okay, I'm gonna put those in. Okay, all right. And even if I don't believe.
Oh, that's funny. But I think this maybe is partially, it gets to the heart of the question of why does easy feel wrong? Because if we don't have a sense of connection to the self that we are, which for me, the way to have that is through what I call sacred intention. That language, that concept might not work for everybody. But let's just say, if you have some way of connecting to that larger sense of who you are, then you are then in the flow of your own psychic energy. And it's like being in the river and going with the current. If you aren't there and you're coming with this sense of, oh, I'm floundering, I just have to effort and keep doing this thing over and over till something happens, I liken that to swimming against the current. And there are people who swim against the current very effectively, both literally and energetically. But I think this when things feel easy, it's usually because we are swimming with the current, and the current is also carrying us. And so if one can drop into that current of the music with the practice of focusing on the patterns with no intention or focus or sacred intention, the key is going into the flow, going with the flow instead of against the flow. I think it's when we go against the flow that it ends up feeling so hard.
As you're speaking, I just keep thinking about my journey with the tune, the Nightingale, because I mean, it's many people's favorite song of mine. It's super simple, and it's got a descending bass line, which I love. La, 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 who will sing for the nightingale when the night is gone, when the daylight comes? And it goes on like that. It's very, very simple, and it's so simple that I felt shame in singing it. And I didn't want to sing it until a friend of mine literally threatened me. I mean, he threatened me, said, if you do not sing this song, I will kill you. And if it wasn't for him, this song might never have been in the world. And I remember when I was singing it with an orchestra, and I remember the conductor, and I think it was Doc Severinsen, he said, stop. He said, stop doing anything. Sing this like a child. Don't make anything of it. That's where the beauty and the power is. And I kept trying, how can I make it good? How can I make it impressive? And I'm thinking also about something that I started doing now. I started sort of making trances for myself, like at night, like, little, like something like, I don't know, but like, as you lie here, there is nothing to do, nothing to worry about. Like, I just make these little things that I then, it's time to go to bed, listen to your little lullaby. And but my fear, I've sung them, or I've played, I think, one of them for the Academy members, and they're like, I want that. The amount of shame that I have of like, but it's not. And you can see my whole body is just like, and if I were to be told, I will kill you if you don't do that, or there is someone out there who needs that, it might make a difference. But my fear is so big of this nameless fear of not being enough, not of somebody being like, well, that's just, I mean, someone even said that to me once about the nightingale. They were like, oh, it's the Pachelbel canon. And I was like, it is? And it is, but it's not.
Yeah, I was having a moment of my heart's compassion for you and my own identification also, that when we don't embellish our essence, we just put our essence out there. It's such a vulnerable position to be in. And so I think that it does trigger any of that early shame we have, where we're just raw. We're raw, and we were not covering things up. We're not hiding, and maybe this is one of the reasons we hold on to judging easy and simple as wrong, is that it's a defense against feeling our own vulnerability at being seen.
Well, we just got this from Tovala. It's shocking.
Yeah.
But, and reading that, I feel really emotional reading that.
Yeah.
But it is true. Like, as we shine, we are seen. And there is, I mean, shining doesn't have to be, hello, I'm a star. Fireflies shine, and the reflection of the moon shines. And there are many, many things that shine or glint or allow themselves to be seen. They're almost, I'm thinking that when something glints, it's like an invitation.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I'm thinking, so now Tovala's comment made me think about the scripture, don't put your light under, don't put your light under a bushel, let it shine. This little light of mine, I love that little song, this little light of mine, don't let it shine, don't hide it. Anyway, I mean, I think, again, we all have the collective conditioning and all of what we've been everything that we've been indoctrinated with, and then we've got our own personal historical overlay of it, where when we did it was all out there shining, somebody did come along and shame it for us. And getting back to the distillate for a minute, because the distillate, that essence, doesn't have anything covering it up. It's not contaminated with anything else. The more distilled it is, I mean, 100 proof alcohol we know is the strongest because there's nothing else in it. I mean, and so I think that we all learn from probably the time we're out of the womb, or maybe even including in the womb, to start kind of mixing our essence gets mixed up with other stuff, and then we end up very contaminated, and we don't even know we're contaminated. And coming back to really what is it that has heart and meaning and is one's own essence, because I do believe this is what's easy, but we judge it because of shame. I mean, I think the reason that easy and simple feels wrong is because of the shame that we have experienced, that we may not even remember. At times we were doing things that were easy, but somebody else thought it was wrong or bad or not enough.
I want to give an example because I was remembering it the other day. So I don't know how old I was, 3 or 4 or something like that. My mom's teaching me how to write, my name or something like that. And at a certain point I'm like, so wait, okay, so we have the alphabet, and you put letters together, and then that makes a word. And she was like, that's how it works. And I'm like, okay, just a second. And I'm like, I'm going to make the best word ever in the entire world right now. Here, watch me. And I put all these letters together, and I'm like, this is going to be such a great word. And I hold it up, and I was like, what does this mean? And she was like, nothing. And now that, I think, epitomizes, I mean, I'm not saying that she was trying to be mean or anything. It's just, it epitomizes what I think the experience is going to be when I'm like, And there's worse ones that were almost the same.
But that's a great example because your mother didn't mean anything by that. I mean, she didn't mean anything against you. However, you thought you'd grasp how you use language. And there was a part in terms of engaging with other people that she hadn't explained, you know?
There was like, I mean, the impression that I got from her was like, you put letters together, you're gonna get words.
Words.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, what power you have. And it was so it was kind of deflating, like, oh, it's not really that simple. It's not real. You don't really mean that you can do that. So
Yeah.
So I think that's I think this happens to a lot of musicians. So what can we do about it? Let's just take a little moment to like, how might each of us this week invite our essence? And I gotta say that as we were talking about, the simplicity, and I was thinking about these little trance things, or they're like anti-trance trance. It's like, meaning we're in a trance all the time, thinking, and so it's an anti-trance trance. Like, it's just like, hey, it's really okay. It's all right. The space between me sharing something like that, between me making something like that for myself and me sharing it with people, is like, now I had a friend who was going to go in for some surgery, and she wrote out a little poem and asked if I would make a little song out of it for her so that she could listen to it. And that was something that I could do, and I could share it with her, and I even shared it on Facebook. But that was like a request for a specific thing. But this other thing, the fear, I think it's the fear, and somebody just said something about this morning. I can't remember where. The fear that I'll show it to somebody. Oh, it had something to do with gambling, actually. I think they were like, I don't want to find out that I don't win, or something like that. Fear of finding out that this precious little thing that has so much meaning for me is not of value, and me deflating, me then losing my sense of value in it and not standing up for it. That's my fear, I think.
Well, I mean, so the one thing I would say that to do this week, and I have to do this constantly myself in many arenas, is whenever I find myself comparing myself to someone else, or thinking that I'm in competition with them, I have to do it like them, or judging myself, that I stop and say to myself, cancel. What's of value to me? Because part of psychological maturity, and I think part of creative maturity, is recognizing something may have value for me, but it may not have value for someone else. And does that mean it's not worthy? It's not worthwhile? Not at all. But it is, I think, a sign of psychological maturity, and I think, again, creative maturity, to recognize this has heart and meaning and value for me. And because it is my essence, it is distilled, then I'm going to trust that probably there is someone else out there it's going to resonate for. And I'm going to share it for that reason. Again, trusting that there will also be people who aren't going to value it. But does that matter? I mean, I think, again, this whole idea that if it doesn't matter to one other person, then that wipes it out. That's the problem. That's the false idea and belief that's got to be destroyed. I do believe when we share something from our heart, it resonates with other people. I believe that. Okay. And I think this was the nightingale, and what Doc Severinsen said to you is, don't cover your heart up.
Right.
Don't cover your heart up.
Okay, I'm going to take one other side of that, because I'm thinking about people who are just starting an instrument, or at like later in life, and thinking that they see something that's amazing that other people are doing. They value that, and they cannot do that. And I remember being in a conversation with somebody who was a runner, and somebody asked them, would you keep running if you weren't getting better? And I don't know what he said, but I started thinking, I'm actually not going to get any better as a runner. I probably won't. I mean, I'm not going to train, blah, 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 blah. I want to run my whole life. I don't know why I wanted to, but I did. I want to run. So I better find a personal relationship to this running.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to ever have the value of being good at it, because there's no, the competition isn't going to work here. Being the best is not going to work. Having accolades is not going to work. I'm not going to be good at that. I'm not going to be good at this, but I need to find my relationship to it. And I did, and it's become more and more and more and more valuable to me, and more and more fun, and more a part of my life. Now, do I share that with others? I actually don't. I don't know whether that's something to do or not to do, but I certainly am more available as a human being because I do it. So, what do you think?
It has value to you. And again, that value to you then does have a positive impact on the people around you, whether it's direct or indirect. Because as you said, you're a better person, you're more centered, you're more alive, you're more energetic.
More available. Yeah.
You're more available. We're going to have to stop, but I do think this is an important conversation to keep having, because we block the flow of our own energy when we dismiss the essentials. And that's true for living our daily life, as well as with our instrument or our creative art. And so really looking at and getting some consciousness and in relationship to these ideas and beliefs and feeling states in us that will take us away from that is extremely important in order to be able to keep the river flowing, to keep the gunk and the garbage out.
I love this, because anything that we do then becomes that possibility of filter. And what you said, I wish I could grab exactly what it was, but it was of the finding the flow of energy in it. And I'm thinking, to the people, hundreds of people sign up for these challenges, and then, imagine the flow of energy and doing it in a way that allows the flow of energy, whatever that is. And that is the thing to discover. Where is the flow of energy here? It's making me think, go back to the challenge, ask that every single day.
Yes.
Where do you find the flow of energy here?
Yes.
What did you have to let go of?
Yes.
In order to do that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We have our focus for the week.
Yeah, we do. Kathleen, thank you so much. Thank you, Tovala. Thank you, Deirdre, who also had a lovely comment here. And thank you, everybody who watches before, after, during. Oh, no, you can't watch before. But anyway, all the comments that we get. It is so wonderful. I love to be able to have this conversation with Kathleen and with all of you. And will you be here again, Kathleen, next week?
Yes. We'll see each other next week.
Okay, see everybody next week.
Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.